Mr. Pomianowski, thank you so much for joining our program. You are the Executive Director of the European Endowment for Democracy, a Polish initiative in the EU, as the Eastern Partnership is actually. EED is designed to support democratic transformation in the EU's southern and eastern neighborhood. What does this exactly mean? What do you exactly do in Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and so on?
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm very happy to be here with you to explain a few words, especially on this very occasion when the special report by a member of the parliament, Mr. Grzyb, report will be voted. For us, after 2 years of operation, it is a very important moment when we try to summarize the first achievements of the endowment. Endowment started as a flagship initiative by Poland during the Polish presidency in 2011. Minister Sikorski, together with the Minister Bildt, voiced a need for having in Europe something like National Endowment for Democracy in US. Basically, this is a grant-giving organizations that support civic and political activism in the countries that are under transition, that are undergoing important change, important reforms, or countries with oppressive regimes where we need to support people who are struggling for democracy.
Could we say that you actually, what you are doing, is forming the new generation of the democratic politicians in Eastern Partnership countries?
Very much so.
In a way?
Very much so. We have to understand that in the countries where democracy is still taking its shape, the simple division line between civil society and political society does not exist. People who are engaged in changing their society, in addressing important issues, they are equally civic activists as well as political activists. And we can have many examples of civic movements that have changed into political movements, and also politicians who moved from the government positions or parliamentary position to the civil society, and through the civil society they are trying to continue their work. So it is very important, because traditional understanding, especially using donor funding, that we should focus only on non-sensitive projects that are related to civil society, but we will not touch politically sensitive issues because this is already a politics. This is an artificial division line. So we have to have a flexible mechanism to support both political and civil society, especially in those environments where the transition is just happening now.
You've just returned from Kiev. There is a year since Kiev signed the association agreement with the EU, and my question to you would be, as an expert in democracy, are there any notable developments in Ukraine in this field, in democracy, since Maidan?
Well, if we talk about democracy, in Kiev, in Ukraine, despite of the war, there is a lot of democracy. People are openly speaking what they are thinking about government. People are openly criticizing when the reforms are not taking enough speed and they are not enough quickly implemented. And at the same time, people understand that this is a unique chance. And this, I am talking about media, I am talking about civil society, and I am talking about the people who decided to join politics, because many of civil society activists now are elected to the parliament. So, in a sense, we can see all this vibrant plethora of different actions that are shaping this country. But it doesn't mean everything goes well. There are things that are unfortunately too slow. The system, well, for example, fighting corruption is too slow. Eliminating oligarchs' presence in the political life, it is too slow. Reconstructing media landscape, for example, by creating strong public broadcaster, it is still too slow. But there are also an early achievements. Just 2 days ago, a new police was finally introduced, and overnight, people started to see that they can call police for any difficult situation in 3 minutes, not in 25 minutes as it was before. So they are having also a very visible achievement that people can understand that change is happening. But still, life and economy especially is not doing that well. So that is the biggest challenge for the people in Ukraine.
You mentioned media and broadening the area of discussion to all Eastern Partnership countries. Since the war in Ukraine, the media landscape has brutally changed. Could we name some notable changes? Are there also positive changes or only negative changes?
Well, media landscape is one very crucial to give people this sense of freedom that we can understand, hear better what's going on in my country and around my country. But this has also been understood as a very specific context of the Russia aggression on Ukraine, because the Russia aggression has two dimensions. One is a military aggression, and another one is an info war, info aggression. The Russian media that are watched in Ukraine, and they are not stopped, for example, through administrative measures.
In all Eastern Partnership countries,
of course,
actually.
in Moldova, in Georgia, in Belarus as well, they are selling a very and true picture of Europe, of world, and of course, situation in those countries. First of all, they are trying to make a huge emotional kind of environment in which they are trying to sell their artificial pseudo debates, explaining that, for example, West wants to kill Russia, wants to destroy Russia, explaining that Western Europe is only about gay marriage, that European Union has no other subjects, but only those very minor, in a sense, issues that do exist, but they do not constitute the main debate in Europe. And that, not only this, but also they are portraying, for example, reforms in Ukraine as driven by the group of Nazi fascists. So these are a very, very artificial and very emotionally well-designed pictures that are affecting people's mind. And unfortunately, it is taking place so long, for many years. It's not just during the war period, but it was already taking place for last 10 years. Just West didn't want to see it. That the damage has already happened, and to reverse this damage, it will take a lot of time and efforts.
What are the main factors preventing the development of healthy media systems in countries of the Eastern Partnership?
First of all, we have to look into the audience, what the audience is. So, for example, recently, it's not about Eastern Partnership, but it's a good example. In Latvia, there is a big audience that is consuming media in Russian. They were Russian-speaking Latvians. And in Latvia, there was a group of people related to the public broadcast that they decided we should have a special channel, public broadcast channel, in Russian for this audience. But when this discussion came to the Latvian parliament, the right-wing parties, who are now in power, started to hesitate, saying that we should not invest in Russian language, we should invest only in Latvian language. So finally, they will not have a full independent channel in Russian language who will take care of this audience. If the public broadcaster does not care about this audience, someone else will take care. And this someone else is a Kremlin-controlled media. So the audience, understanding the audience, is a core. We cannot ignore audience that exists, even if it doesn't fit our picture of our own country. Same applies to Ukraine, same applies to Moldova, and same applies to other countries in the region. So understanding needs of the audience is the first and most important question that every media policymaker should answer.
About media and about Russian media, your organization has drafted a feasibility study on Russian language TV channels. Share with us some insights.
Well, the title of the study is Feasibility Study on Independent Russian Language Media Initiatives, and the philosophical title is Bringing Back Plurality and Balance to Russian Language Media Space. So, if you ask about TV channel, we say, no, we do not recommend now to set up one new TV channel. We recommend...
In Russia?
In Russian language.
In Russian language.
Yes.
Within this space of
for the whole region.
For the whole region.
Because we already have Russian language independent channels, and they, like Euronews, like Radio Voice of America, Radio Liberty, and Radio Free Europe, they have their broadcast, but this broadcast can reach maximum 2 to 5% of audience in the whole region, because this is the type of news or information TV channels that are addressing only those audiences who are really interested. We need to find another way around. We need to attract people who normally does not watch information channels. People who are watching entertainment, for example, only. And they will not switch to another channel if even there is availability. And in Russia, for example, there will be no availability because through administrative measures it will be stopped. So only internet stays open for them. But still, in internet, many people look for interesting content, not necessarily news, but interesting content, reportage, serials, a different type of documentaries. So we can set up, instead of channel, a multimedia distribution platform that is on demand, that people in Russian language, that can unite existing independent different outlets, because also there are many outlets that exist. So we need also to embrace them, to use this plurality. That's why in our report we say plurality. This is the best way to fight with this single hand-controlled channels from Kremlin.
So this would be your idea to fight propaganda, Kremlin propaganda?
Exactly.
This would be your idea for the EU to fight
exactly.
the Kremlin propaganda?
Use the best of what we have. Plurality is the best what we believe, and plurality is best what we have. So if we have in front of us centrally driven, controlled channel, if we confront this with another channel, that Putin will say, this is my truth, this is your truth, this is my propaganda, this is your propaganda. No, we have plenty of small outlets. Like there is a small website in Moldova, in Gagauzia, that have 50,000 users. It's in Russian, and it's Gagauzia, and it's pro-European. And these 50,000 users, suddenly, with the support of European donors, can receive a content that normally they cannot afford to produce. So in eyes of their recipients, audience, this small site will become very professional, because it will be supported with the support from the donor community in Europe.
My last question, Mr. Pomianowski. Speaking about the Russian-speaking TV channels, the Russian state media, what is the role of this Russian state media in the political developments within this space? For instance, in Gagauzia, you mentioned Gagauzia, has had the Russian national state channel a role, for instance, had a role during the elections?
Absolutely.
Had a role during the local elections in Moldova last week?
Yes, we did analyze it very carefully. And what happens, that the candidates, they were pro-Russian candidates, they were receiving a lot of media space in the TV channels that were broadcast from Russia. So suddenly we could see enormous lack of balance between presence in media, and plus also those candidates were using the celebrities from Russian Kremlin-controlled TV that they put on photo together, famous singers, famous TV shows they did participated in. So that gave them enormous extra visibility that was not available for their counterparts and competitors in this race. So we could easily see how strongly Russian media are supporting only one type of political choice in Gagauzia.
Mr. Pomianowski, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you very much.